Good evening. I guess I don't have to tell you who I am, right? Anyway, it's my extraordinary privilege to welcome you here this evening to honor 17 remarkable individuals whose innovations are triggering positive change all around the world. At the Skoll Foundation, we invest in, connect, and celebrate social entrepreneurs, work we carry out with rigor, heart, and humility, with outstanding colleagues around the world. Many of you are here tonight, and I want to begin by thanking our friends at Ashoka, Avena, Acumen, the Schwab Foundation, the Global Catalyst Foundation, IFC, IVN, and so many others for your referrals, your encouragement, your cautions, and your caveats. Tonight we are all here to celebrate not only the 2006 Skoll Award recipients, but to raise the profile of risk takers and social entrepreneurs everywhere, to make their stories far better known, their work better understood. I want to pause for a moment on that point about stories and reinforce how important we believe it is, these true narratives of personal courage, of ingenuity in the face of obstacles, and persistence in the presence of naysayers are told. Social entrepreneurs embrace accountability. We ask for data, they deliver data. We ask for proof of concept, they summon the evidence. We ask for charts, graphs, plans, and risk analyses, they've got them. What they are less forthcoming about are their own stories, the biographical accounts that tell us about them as people. And yet it is those stories and the stories of all those whose lives they touch and change that bring the data, the return on investment, the evidence of that new equilibrium alive. The great comparative mythologist and college professor, Joseph Campbell, who dedicated his life to exploring and understanding the world's perennial narratives, the myths and stories all cultures and civilizations share, is reported once to have concluded class discussion of one of his favorites, the Parzival legend, by throwing down the gauntlet and posing this question to his students. So, is it going to be the Grail quest, or is it going to be the wasteland? Are you going to go on the creative soul's quest, or are you going to pursue the life that only gives you security? Are you going to live the myth, or is the myth going to live you? The short films we are about to see describe how 4 social entrepreneurs took up that gauntlet, rejecting the way of the wasteland, leaving behind security to chart a new course for their own lives and for the lives of so many others. These 4 films, each of which is about 7 minutes long, were commissioned by the Foundation and produced by award-winning filmmakers Carl Biker and Mitch Wilson. They traveled to Paraguay, Zambia, India, and deepest California to capture these stories that deserve to be told. We are deeply grateful to Martine Burt, Victoria Hale, Ann Cotton, and Amitabh Sidangi for agreeing to join us in this experiment and for sharing their stories with Carl and Mitch, and now with all of us. And I want to express profound admiration and appreciation to our colleagues at Sundance and to Sandy Hurst, who served as this initiative's executive producer every step of the way. Martine Burt of Fundación Paraguaya and Victoria Hale of the Institute for One World Health are featured in the first 2 films, which we now will see.
In March 1999, I was mayor of the capital city of Paraguay, and there was a popular uprising. There was a big protest in the central plaza, and democratic forces had assembled there to ask the president to resign because he had violated the Constitution. And all of a sudden, they started shooting at the students. And one by one, the students started falling, being hit, many wounded, 8 died. So this is when I decided that something had to be done, and I just ordered my city engineer to bring in 30 garbage trucks and 20 heavy equipments and surround the building of Congress. Everybody thought that we were going to be massacred. Even the American ambassador called me and told me, get out of the plaza because we have information that they're going to shoot you and they're going to kill you. And we said, well, let them come, because there has to be a time when people just say, this is the line, enough is enough. There were many deaths, but it was a major victory for democracy because the dictatorial forces could not take over Congress. Congress assembled the next day on a Saturday, and the president resigned on Sunday. My name is Martine Burt, and when my term as mayor was finished in 2001, I decided that I wanted to dedicate my life to working with people and promoting economic self-reliance from the bottom up. I've realized that only public policy was not going to transform the society. I decided to return to the Paraguayan Development Foundation and continue working with the people, the small people, the poor people, the young, who I believe are the basis of any sustainable change in any society. In 2002, we were offered this agricultural school in Paraguay, and we said, sure, let's take it and let's try to make it self-sufficient. In developing countries, people are without any type of serious education. They have no skills, they have no knowledge. But when you reverse that, you begin to transform inhabitants of a country into citizens. When these citizens can make a decent living off the land, then they can start regaining confidence in themselves, and they start thinking of what is good, what is bad, what is productive for society, and what is not. So what we need is to transform farmers into rural entrepreneurs. We envision a school where there are livestock, a dairy, chicken, pork, fish, that are run as a business with a break-even point and with the professor being in charge of its efficient business operation. Students learn in math class how to calculate the break-even point of their chicken coop, for example. And they have to know that it is not enough to have a chicken coop. You have to have a chicken coop that will produce 170 eggs a day that have to be sold at such a price at the local market to earn such and such amount in order to pay the professor. It is not just how to grow tomatoes. It is how to make money growing tomatoes. Because people have been growing potatoes and corn in Latin America for the past 15,000 years, and they're all poor. So it is not a matter of knowing how to grow the crop or raise the animal. It is a matter of how to make money and how to be financially successful doing farming in our poor countries. Jorge Guerrero is a typical student of our agricultural school. He comes from a very large family. There are 19 children in his family. He's the 10th. You can understand the lack of opportunities that a child in these circumstances has. In his case, his family was very fortunate that they could pull him through 9th grade, at which time he entered our agricultural school.
Y nosotros tenemos que producir de lo mejor, en mejor calidad, y el sistema de producción de la escuela es en forma orgánica. Y para eso producimos en forma biointensiva. Y de allí sacamos productos de buena calidad y cantidad. Es producir mayor cantidad en menor espacio posible. de la producción agropecuaria, porque acá en Paraguay los pequeños productores, eso es lo que tiene el problema, no sabe sacar provecho, buen provecho, ganar plata de la pequeña agricultura. Y eso nosotros aprendemos allá en la escuela.
Everybody talks about eliminating poverty, but nobody talks about how do we put money in the poor's pockets. At our agricultural school, we say bluntly, we want to eliminate poverty, we want to teach the poor how to make money. There is a general thinking in the world that the poor can never help themselves and that economic self-reliance is not possible in Latin America. Economic self-reliance is not possible in Africa or in India. And we have to change that. Every poor village in the world can have an economic self-sufficient agricultural school to teach its young farmers. And once you have rural entrepreneurs making money, they can become leaders of society and start a system by which people regain power. It's not a matter of expecting things from the top down, but really building a country from the bottom up.
It was the year 2000. I was 40 years old, and for 2 years I had been thinking about starting another type of pharmaceutical company, one that would target diseases that no one was researching. I was in this taxi cab, and I love to talk to taxi cab drivers, and he asked me what I did, and I said, I'm a pharmaceutical scientist, and I'm here for a pharmaceutical meeting. And he roared in laughter and laughed very deeply, and then said something that was extremely painful, and it really was a turning point for me. And it was, you all have all the money. When he said that, I achieved a moment of clarity. Why in our world, in the 21st century, were there people who had medicines for any disease, any complaint? And in other parts of the world, 5,000, 10,000 miles away, babies die of dehydrating diarrhea. How can that be? That is not fair. If there's anything I could do personally, then I had to do it. My name is Victoria Hale. In the year 2000, I founded the Institute for One World Health. One World Health is a not-for-profit pharmaceutical company. We develop medicines for orphan diseases and diseases that no other company in the world is developing medicines for. Bihar state is one of the poorest states in India, and a disease which existed in Bihar now for hundreds of years is surging forward in another epidemic. Its name is Kala Azar, or black fever. People in this state who have tremendous poverty to begin with and inadequate nutrition then have a fatal disease which is spread by the smallest of insects. It is a disease that wipes out your bone marrow. You don't make white cells, don't make red cells, you don't make platelets. You die a horrible death. Some people compare it to HIV. The only therapy that existed is very toxic and often ineffective and costs hundreds of dollars. These families are left with the choice of borrowing money to go into debt for 3 generations or allowing that family member to die. I have been in communities and asked mothers and fathers, what diseases are you afraid of, particularly for your children? Is it malaria? Is it diarrhea? The answer is no. They universally say Kala Azar. What I realized was that there was an antibiotic named paromomycin that would cure Kala Azar. The problem was that the pharmaceutical company had long ago stopped making the drug because of low sales. And so I decided that we should try to bring paromomycin back to life. And I knew that if we could succeed, it would be an ideal business model for a nonprofit pharmaceutical company. Matching orphan diseases with orphan drugs, drugs that already exist, but that no one is developing or producing. What's beautiful about paromomycin is it cures almost everyone who receives it. It is extremely safe. We've known that for 50 years. And it is very inexpensive. It is cheap. It is 1/10 the cost of any other medicine available for Kala Azar. In fact, it's so cheap that if we could prove that it worked, the Indian government was willing to distribute it for free. So the World Health Organization, WHO, and One World Health went together to Bihar State, to the capital, Patna, and to the biggest hospital in Patna. The trial that we performed at this hospital was exciting and a little bit scary for all of us. I watched patients and saw their excitement and at the same time their uncertainty as to whether this investigational drug would be effective and would cure them of this disease. And the patients who received our drug were sitting up in conversation, awake, aware, hungry, which is rare in this disease, appetite coming back, asking for more and more food, gaining their strength. I was elated. It was a tremendous high. We had one chance to get it right, one chance with the government of India to show that we could figure out how to make a new drug for a disease that the whole world had forgotten. And this was going to be that drug. Paromomycin is my child. I've been giving birth to paromomycin now for 4 years, and the labor is almost over. We expect to have paromomycin approved by the government of India this year. Now our goal is to match other orphan drugs with the many other orphan diseases that afflict hundreds of millions of people around the world. We can't do this by ourselves. We need partners. We need pharmaceutical companies, we need governments, and we need people to distribute the products that we make. We need physicians who know how to treat patients. There are a lot of us who have to come together, but sometimes the first spark is the hope of a new medicine.
I think Martine and Victoria really remind us of the power one person has to make a difference, to change a system, to shift everybody's thinking, to make us act and behave in new ways. They are 2 of 13 inspiring social entrepreneurs in our first formal class of award recipients last year. And before I proceed, I'd like to take a moment to recognize all our 2005 award recipients. Remarkably, all 13 of them were able to join us again this year. Please stand so that we can applaud and recognize you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce the social entrepreneur whose vision has brought us all here tonight. Even as a youngster growing up in Canada, Jeff Skoll could see that the world was headed in a dangerous direction and knew that it wasn't okay to sit on the sidelines and watch that happen. Jeff knew he'd have to join the fray, and he thought the best way to go about it would be to become a writer. Fast forward, Jeff decides engineering might be more practical in the short term, gets his double E degree at the University of Toronto, and starts 2 companies. But running companies turns out to be more complicated than he'd bargained for, so he heads to Stanford for an MBA. Armed with that degree, he then goes to work for Knight Ridder, resisting Pierre Omidyar's invitation to come help him start that new online auction business. But his gut-level entrepreneur's instincts finally prevail, and he joins Pierre as eBay's founding president, putting that MBA to good use by writing the business plan that the company still follows. All this time, though, and the poor guy still just wants to write stories. Take another leap forward. It's 2002. Jeff and Pierre have long since successfully transitioned eBay to a new CEO. Jeff has pioneered creation of the eBay Foundation with pre-IPO stock and created his own personal foundation. It's time to get back to the idea of writing those stories, stories to enlighten and inspire, stories with the power to move and activate, and the Skoll Foundation's mission to invest, connect, and celebrate social entrepreneurs takes root. Over the months that followed getting the mission right, Jeff describes for me and for our board how he thinks about Celebrate, about what it could mean to those pioneers of social change if their stories were to become better known, if the power of media could be harnessed, film, documentary, television, the internet, radio, print, to bring such stories to life so that millions would know about the ideas and dedication and impact of men and women working on behalf of all of us to build better communities and a better world. It's the genesis for the new heroes, an idea which PBS embraces, but it's also a bigger idea, which leads Jeff, ever the entrepreneur, to LA, where he creates participant productions in order to make socially relevant, commercially viable media, media that matters, media that makes a difference, that tells stories that need to be told. How's Participant doing? Well, its first 4 releases, the documentary, Murder Ball, and feature films North Country, Syriana, and Good Night and Good Luck collectively garnered 11 Academy Award nominations, and the evening's first Oscar went to a participant project to George Clooney for his stunning performance in Syriana. Hollywood studio heads are still shaking their heads. This just doesn't happen, they say, but so it is when the force of creative destruction is truly with you. Now, who better to take up the script from here than Skoll Foundation founder and chairman and a social entrepreneur's social entrepreneur, Jeff Skoll.
Well, thank you all very much, and thank you, Sally, for the kind words. Sally really is following Skoll's first rule of public speaking, that it's best to be introduced by someone you've hired for an important job. So thank you, Sally. And nobody does her job better than Sally, and the Skoll Foundation team is just fantastic. I'm honored and proud to be with you here tonight to celebrate. I'd like to start by thanking the Academy and my agent, and I'm sorry I got the wrong speech. The last event of this kind that I was at celebrated a quirky writer, a transsexual housewife, a couple of gay cowboys, and a 200-foot gorilla. I swear that's the last time I go to a party at George Clooney's house. Of course, I'm actually talking about the Oscars, and it's been said of the Academy Awards that they are a reflection of the world that we live in. And the truth is, that gives me hope, because so many of the movies nominated this year had positive social messages. But at the same time, the fact that the 5 movies that were nominated for Best Picture featured themes of racism, murder, homophobia, abuse of power, and terrorism is enough to make you want to double lock your windows and hide under your bed. But if the Academy Awards are a reflection of the world as it is today, I'd like to think that the Skoll Awards are a reflection of the world as it can be and the world that we'd like it to be. It's easy to feel despair every time we read about tragedies that occur in the poorest parts of the world, But then I look at what Bunker Roy has achieved with Barefoot College, and I feel hope. And it's easy to feel despair when we read about lives lost to violence. And then I think about Victoria Hale and the number of lives that will be saved because of one person's idea, and I feel hope. And it's easy to feel despair when we read about terror and acts of terror. But then I hear David Bornstein reminding us that in the past 20 years, the world has produced far more social entrepreneurs than it has terrorists. And I feel hope, a lot of it. Even though social entrepreneurs are the world's best hope, you're still one of the world's best kept secrets. And it's hard to believe, but around the same time I graduated from college, not very long ago, Professor Greg Dees was denied the right to teach a course in social entrepreneurship because the school didn't think it was relevant. Of course, it serves him right for teaching at Harvard Business School. There's a very good chance today, almost a perfect chance, that if you read or hear a story about a social entrepreneur, someone is bound to ask, what is a social entrepreneur? And you never hear that asked about doctors or lawyers or even cheerleaders. And I was curious, so I Googled what is a social entrepreneur and came up with 12,400 hits. And then I went one step further and I Googled Bill Drayton and came up with 15,200 hits. And then for fun, I Googled Britney Spears. And you guessed it, 15.7 million hits. So here's our goal, to make Bill Drayton and Victoria Hale and Martine Burt as well known as Britney Spears. So what is a social entrepreneur, and what do those 12,400 hits say? Social entrepreneurs are people who apply rigorous discipline to social problems. They use many of the tools and techniques of business and apply them to the world of the social sector or the citizen sector. I threw that in for Bill Drayton. Their work is characterized by innovation, leverage, empowerment, and lasting change. And the difference is their bottom line is not in profits earned, but in lives, communities, and societies transformed. In short, social entrepreneurs are people who believe and act on the unshakable conviction that individuals acting alone or together can truly make a difference in the world. But how do we recognize them? During the Middle Ages, Oxford students were said to be recognizable by their knowledge of the 7 liberal arts: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. Today, in some of these same lecture halls, Said students may learn that effective business executives are recognizable by 7 habits, also known as the 7 habits of highly effective people. Well, what about social entrepreneurs? What can we learn about the 7 habits of highly effective social entrepreneurs from the stories in this room tonight? Well, the first quality that stands out amongst the 16 people we honor here tonight is a profound sense of hearing loss. Social entrepreneurs are incapable of understanding the words, "It's impossible," "It can't be done," "You'll never succeed," or "Why bother trying?" Just the opposite. Those words are like red flags to social entrepreneurs and seem to be their rallying call. Gloria D'Souza, the Indian school teacher who became the first elected fellow of Ashoka, tried in the early 1970s to convince her colleagues to adopt a new technique for teaching that stressed experiential and environmental learning over rote memorization. And she heard no, no, no repeatedly. It took her 5 years to get the administrators to say yes. And then she heard the same no's when she tried to take the model to Bombay. More years of no. But she persisted. She persisted. And by the late 1980s, her early education model became the standard for every first, second, and third grader in India. And that's not just persistent, that's unshakable resolve and gritty determination. Closely coupled with that persistence is quality number 2. Social entrepreneurs are A students who are not afraid to get Fs. And by that, I mean they're not afraid to risk failure. Nick Moon and Martin Fisher spent a decade in Kenya inventing one product after another that didn't quite catch on. But each insight eventually led to their low-cost, human-powered irrigation pumps that have helped start more than 36,000 new businesses in Kenya, Tanzania, and Mali, driving almost 1% of gross domestic product in Kenya alone. You never know where a good idea will lead if you stick with it. Third, social entrepreneurs know when to boil the clothes. One of history's most remarkable social entrepreneurs is Florence Nightingale. And when Florence Nightingale first arrived in Turkey during the Crimean War, she found thousands of sick and wounded soldiers all lying in dirty, flea-infested clothing. And people were wondering how to get them well. Her inexpensive solution, boil the clothes in water. In 3 months, that simple solution helped cut the death rate in British hospitals from 43% to 2%. And that kind of practical genius is everywhere among social entrepreneurs. People like Indrajit Khurana, a school teacher who saw dozens of children on the platforms of the train stations in India, and she wondered how she could get them to school. Well, her innovation was to bring the school to them by setting up platform classrooms. And simple is sometimes best. Fourth, social entrepreneurs inhabit lesser zones of gravity. An astronaut who walks on the moon is able to jump 6 times higher than he can on Earth because of the lesser force of gravity. Somehow, social entrepreneurs replicate that effect and do more with less than anybody thinks possible. And this is evidence when one considers that Muhammad Yunus has been credited with lifting more than 70 million people out of poverty, all starting with a few dollars from his own pocket. The fifth habit of highly effective social entrepreneurs is an ability to make molehills out of mountains. You have a knack for taking big, complex problems and then boiling them down to something at a more human level, a smaller level. And maybe you can't fix an entire school system on your own, but you can find a way to teach computer skills to 500,000 of the poorest children in Brazil's favelas, as Rodrigo Baggio has done. Or maybe you don't feel as if you can change and protect the environment on your own, but you can create a lending model that helps farmers transition to green production, as William Foote has done through ecologic finance in Mexico, improving management of more than 75,000 acres. Finding the molehill in the mountain is a skill you all share. Sixth, social entrepreneurs have X-ray vision. Where some people look at the half of humanity that lives on $1 or less a day and see only poverty and squalor, social entrepreneurs see talent and potential. Luis Zaran was the 8th child of struggling farmers when he was discovered by a prominent musician and was given the opportunity to study music with master teachers in Europe. He founded Sonidas de la Tierra in Paraguay to give similar opportunities to children from the same kinds of backgrounds. And if you ask him why, Luis says that young people who play Mozart by day do not break windows at night. And in the midst of oppressive poverty, Sonidas de la Tierra has helped residents of 18 communities establish philanthropic societies and has worked directly to improve the future for thousands. And that's X-ray vision indeed. Seventh and final habit. Social entrepreneurs are all pyromaniacs at heart. It's impossible for any of you to talk about your work without setting a room on fire. A great American abolitionist named Wendell Phillips was once asked why he got so fired up when he talked about the issue of slavery. He replied, "I'm on fire because I've got mountains of ice to melt." And whether the ice you've got to melt is poverty or hunger, child labor, or whether it means standing up for human rights, to me, social entrepreneurs are the real heroes in the world today. When people like Sakina Yakubi, Albina Ruiz, and Ann Cotton dedicate their lives to their work, often in dangerous or unsafe conditions, there is no better definition of the word hero, and that those heroes are setting the world on fire. I believe that you all represent the best hope for a brighter tomorrow, And that's why we celebrate tonight names like Drayton and Eunice and Hale, and we add 16 new names to that roll, names like John Wood and Jim Fruchterman and Jeru Billamoria. And these names may not be as well known today as Britney Spears, but I think they should be. And to all 16 of you, please accept your Skoll Oscar tonight with pride. Thank you.
As Jeff said, at the Skoll Foundation, we use the tagline, "Uncommon Heroes, Common Good," to underscore what makes social entrepreneurs so worthy of recognition. Our next films profile two people who may not yet be household names, nor would they consider themselves heroes. In fact, both would absolutely insist that the real heroes are the people they serve. Please join me in watching our two final films featuring Amitabh Sadangi of IDE India and Ann Cotton of CAMFED.
बरसात के कारण भारत में बहुत पानी है, ये बहुत लोग का सोच है। लेकिन हकीकत ये है, भारत का अधिकतम क्षेत्र सूखा है। जून से सितंबर के बीच बारिश होती है और यही 4 महीने में एक ही फसल उगा पाते हैं। साल के कम से कम 6 महीने किसान मजबूर होकर काम के तलाश से पूरे परिवार के साथ बाहर जाते हैं। परिवार के साथ बाहर रहने के कारण बच्चे को स्कूल जाने की मौका नहीं मिलते हैं। अपने माता पिता की तरह ही सुविधाहीन रहने के कारण अगली पीढ़ी भी इस जाल से फंस जाते हैं। ये होते देखना काफी कष्टदायक है, लेकिन सब गरीब लोगों का यही जिंदगी है।
मेरा नाम अमिताभ साडंगी है। मैं 25 साल पहले ऐसे ही गरीब से गुजर रहा था। दिन में मेरे को 2 बार खाना भी नहीं मिल रहा था और मैं कोशिश किया हूँ कि मैं कुछ करूँ।
मैं भी पूरे समय स्कूल नहीं जा पाया था, लेकिन अपनी मेहनत से मैंने स्कूल पूरा किया और सर्वोच्च डिग्री प्राप्त की। शिक्षा के बाद मैंने सोचा, अगर एक सरकारी नौकरी मिल जाए मेरा जिंदगी बेहतर हो जाएगी। लेकिन उसी समय मुझे ये एहसास हुआ, मुझे गरीब लोगों की मदद के लिए कुछ तो करना है। अधिकतर व्यवसायी अपना मुनाफा पर ज़्यादा ध्यान देते हैं। मैंने सोचा व्यवसाय को एक नया दृष्टिकोण क्यों ना दे। आईडी इंडिया छोटे किसान के लिए सिंचाई उपकरण कम से कम दाम पर उपलब्ध कराती है। बूंद बूंद सिंचाई हमारा ऐसा एक उपकरण है जिसे गरीब से गरीब किसान खरीद सकते हैं और सूखे के समय में सिंचाई कर सकते हैं। और ऐसे ही किसान सिंचाई कर पाते हैं, पूरी साल खेती करके अपनी जिंदगी बेहतर कर लेते हैं। हमारा सिंचाई का साधन अगर कोई गरीब किसान खरीदता है, उसे इस्तेमाल कर कम से कम $10 कमाता है और यदि $10 लगा पाता है तो कम से कम $100 कमा सकता है। लोगों को ये सोच है कि जब उसके पास $1,000 से $2,000 नहीं होते तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते। ये सोच ही गलत है। मेरा ये मानना है कि यदि आपके पास सिर्फ $1 है और उसका आप सही इस्तेमाल करते हैं तो उससे $50,000 कमाया जा सकता है।
ये देश में या अफ्रीका में या लैटिन अमेरिका में वो डिफरेंट है आईडी का, कि हम लोग चैरिटी का भी विश्वास नहीं करते।
एक गरीब को गरीबी से निकलने के लिए सबसे अच्छा तरीका उसका कठिन परिश्रम। यही सोच आईडी इंडिया को अलग संस्था का दर्जा देते हैं। हम गरीबों को मुफ्त सहायता से विश्वास ही नहीं करते। हमारा $1 का सिंचाई उपकरण इस्तेमाल कर किसान छोटे खेत में सब्जियां उगाकर आमदनी करता है। उस आमदनी से वो अधिक जमीन पर खेती कर पाते हैं। पानी की अभाव वाले क्षेत्र में बहुत किसान $1 बिंजो कर अपनी जिंदगी बेहतर कर पाए हैं। अब इन किसान को पहले के तरह काम की तलाश में दूसरी जगह जाना नहीं पड़ता है। अपने ही खेत पर काम कर उसके बच्चों को अच्छी शिक्षा दे पाते हैं। अब ये किसान अपने मकान का मरम्मत कर पा रहे हैं, दवाइयाँ खरीद पाते हैं और अपने परिवार के लिए अच्छे कपड़े खरीद पा रहे हैं। यही है $1 का कमाल। आईडी इंडिया अपना उत्पाद एक वितरक श्रृंखला द्वारा भारत के अधिकतम क्षेत्र में उपलब्ध कराती है। आज हमारे साथ 40 विभिन्न निर्माता और 4000 से अधिक क्षुद्र व्यापारी हैं। व्यापारी लोग हमारे साथ जुड़कर पैसा तो कमाते ही है और साथ में काफी गरीब लोग का मदद भी हो जाता है।
अच्छा, ये आधा एकड़ में आपको 40,000 तक मिल सकते हैं।
हमारे काम करने का तरीके को कहीं भी इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है। इस साल हम पाकिस्तान और श्रीलंका में भी हमारा कार्यक्रम शुरू किए हैं। ये उम्मीद है आने वाले समय में हम अपने कार्यक्रमों को अफ्रीका ले जाएंगे। मेरा सपना है कि मैं अपने अनुभव से गरीब से जूझ रहे लोगों की मदद करूं। बहुत से ऐसे क्षेत्र हैं जहां सिंचाई एवं उसके साधन बड़ा परिवर्तन ला सकता है। मेरा मानना है कि सब कुछ संभव है क्योंकि हम ये कर चुके हैं। हमारा कोशिश से आज तक 2 अरब गरीब लोग $100 अरब भारत में ही कमा चुके हैं। मैं अपने लिए बहुत पैसा कमा सकता था, लेकिन मुझे ये खुशी नहीं मिल सकती थी। दूसरे लोगों को मदद कर मुझे जो खुशी मिलती है, ये अनमोल है।
If you walked into a classroom in almost every country of Africa and you asked the boys to stand up and the girls to stand up in the early primary school years, you would find more or less a balance in enrollment. But as you go on, you will find the dropout of girls rises and girls become a smaller and smaller minority. And it's tragic to look at those little girls and realize the desire for education. They sit and learn in classrooms where they hang on teachers' every word, and yet you know that they're not going to be able to continue. My name's Anne Cotton, and in 1990 I first went to Africa, to Zimbabwe, to look at the problems of girls' access to education. And what I found surprised and shocked me, and I became an activist. I walked from village to village with an interpreter listening to people's views about girls' education. And I had expected to hear that they didn't want their daughters' education because they wanted them to be working in the fields or they wanted them to marry young. And consistently I heard the message from parents, from teachers, from the local chief that girls' education was desired. The problem was one of poverty. In Zimbabwe, I met Judith Kamire, an incredibly inspiring head teacher.
When Anne first came, I felt that was a great opportunity because I had problems which I could not solve on my own. Girls were dropping out of school. And in a class of about 23 boys, you'd find there would only be 3 girls. But getting to the community, the place where women were supposed to be was home. And I really felt there was something wrong because a school is meant for both the boy and the girl. So the coming in of Anne enabled me to discuss with her as to how best we could solve that problem.
Poor parents want as much for their children as every other parent, as I want for my children. They just don't have the means to provide it. And so in 1993, I founded CAMFED, the Campaign for Female Education, to support the education of girls in Africa. One of the young women we've met is Frida, and her circumstances are very, very difficult. She lost both her parents to AIDS, and yet she's taken up the reins of her family. She is not only supporting her own brothers and sisters, but she's also supporting the children of her brother, who also died of AIDS, and his wife. She has become the only breadwinner in that family. We provided a micro loan for Frida, and with it she started a flower selling business. She's been able to bank money in a fixed interest deposit account. She's probably the first woman in her family ever to have a bank account, and she has saved to the extent that she can now afford only to work part-time in her business and to come back to school. So she has returned to education because she understands the value of education. And so not only is she the mother to 4 children, she is also a scholar. Elizabeth dropped out of education. Her mother didn't have the means to pay for a new school uniform or the fees. And she would have faced a life where she had married young, had her children when she was still an adolescent, and probably the whole poverty cycle again would have begun. The CAMFED program is now supporting her education. It's not hand-to-mouth anymore, it's real, and this support is guaranteed and continuous. And so with that security that Elizabeth now has, she's absolutely blossomed. She's doing incredibly well academically, and she's been chosen as the head girl of the school. Abigail comes from a typical poor background. She's lost her parents, and that is a common experience of many of this generation of adolescents and indeed of children in sub-Saharan Africa. She lives with her grandmother, and in spite of her absolute care and concern for Abigail, there was no way she could earn enough to send Abigail to school.
At Abigail, vanshangile nshinshiripo neshitwaire mukuangala n'abananze naye samulafe vankonkera olubiro nishimwe nishachitika nimambuya bafwa ati awo tuyafe kung'anda kuli fisuma ati ofo twashire yano okuyana bambuya vanjikalikana paka chefi paka mpasa na usho Abigail nati awo nshishibe first day munga mwaiswa mjanuari okapaluwe secondary mwabati umutima fe wasekeremo first ndafwa ngana kwata mama kusaya ngifyafile mwachinje ba yes Abigail course yangu nursing na journalism then after that yanapusha fyonsenga na tampenchito nainenga senda kwa bache banandi balabenenga abana banshwa nainenga fondi kula basambirishako kusambirisha omwana kashi chintu ikikankala sana kabe sumanganashi.
We are supporting over 72,000 girls in education. We're now working with over 1,000 schools in some of the hardest to reach places. In the 21st century, all girls should be in school because that's justice. And beyond the justice, the benefits of girls' education are extraordinary. It has now been realized that the investment in girls' education is the best investment that a country can make. In fact, it's the best investment that the world can make, because the dividends are enormous. They will be the first generation through school, and so they are the role models. And coming out of school, they have aspirations. They are now aspiring to be doctors, to be lawyers, to have their own businesses and to become social entrepreneurs, to be part of the development of the social fabric of their communities. Nothing would make me happier than that tomorrow CAMFED became redundant. When every child in Africa and throughout the world has the chance that they deserve, then we won't be needed, because they will change the world. They will make sure that the next generation is not born into poverty. And when they succeed, with our help, then we can watch them transform their communities. We can watch them transform our world. And we can stand back and admire the view.
It's with deep sadness, but it's also a great privilege to dedicate the first public screening of the film we've just seen about CAMFED's work to Judith Kumiri. Judith was the woman you saw with Anne in Zambia, Anne's mentor and inspiration, a woman who dedicated her life to emancipating girls and women and who died 3 days ago. Thank you so much, Amitabh and Anne, for helping all of us, even through the darkness, glimpse that view of a world you see so clearly, the world you are helping bring about. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage two special guests who are already quite familiar with award ceremonies. First, we were so fortunate last year to have Academy Award-winning actor Sir Ben Kingsley with us for the World Forum. He honored us with his talent and remarkable graciousness, both with his memorable opening remarks, who could forget this grandson of a spice trader, describing Jeff as silk root, and by reading the award citations at our first ceremony. This year, we could not be more pleased to have him with us again. Please join me in welcoming a distinguished actor and a remarkable humanitarian just back from Kashmir in Pakistan's earthquake-ravaged north, a true friend to social entrepreneurs, Sir Ben Kingsley.
You're quite right, Sally. I did compare Jeff, well, I called Jeff the new silk route, the silk route of the 21st century. By that I meant that he brings an abundance of enlightenment wherever he spawns his wonderful disciples, the new generation of social entrepreneurs. On my way here, I was reminded of some words by the son of a Nottingham coal miner, D.H. Lawrence, when he speaks of love and clean warmth. And I was wondering what the antithesis of that would be, and I suppose it's loveless squalor. And the recipients in the room that I be so privileged to meet in a few minutes are those who are dedicating their lives to transforming in millions of people an accepted state of loveless squalor into love and clean warmth. And it's to those 16 people, on a personal note, that I would like to offer my thanks and our thanks for saving our lives, because through what you're doing, Jeff, you are making historically impossible the Holocaust that could be spawned of rage and indifference. Because of what you're doing, that Holocaust will be historically impossible. 16 today, 100 next year, soon 10,000 of you, and then millions of you. You're making that Holocaust historically impossible by what you're doing. And thanks for saving my life. Thanks, Jeff.
Many of you had a chance to hear from our next guest last night when he shared his timely and provocative ideas. A man who works within the system and on its edge, who embraces risk because it feeds the flame of his artistic conscience and in turn feeds ours. Tonight he has graciously agreed to assist us in honoring our 2006 Skoll Entrepreneurs. Please join me in welcoming Robert Redford back on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is just a wonderful place for me to be, and I can't express it enough. First of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be with my friend and colleague, Sir Ben Kingsley, and to be here with all of you. And that's basically one of the reasons I'm here, is to just be here with you and to see you and hear you and support you. You know, Sally was, earlier she was talking about myth. I'm thinking about myth is such an important element in storytelling, and there's a real place for myth, I think, in storytelling. There's also a place where it doesn't belong, like in the news media, in public policy, both of which are a little too evident in my country. I'm not speaking about yours. But entertainment, that's a pretty big word, and it's a very valuable category to entertain people, to make people feel good. I feel that's my main obligation as an artist, is to entertain, but I also think you can do more than just entertain in some pop way. And right now I'm in a country that's saturated by entertainment related to celebrity. There is another kind of entertainment. There's the entertainment where the media or film can be used in an educational and a cultural, in a way of cultural exchange. That interests me more and more all the time. And so to be here with you and to understand and to see, I already knew, but to really feel what Jeffrey Skoll and his team, Sally and the gang, have done is quite unbelievable. Everybody's given Jeff a lot of kudos, and I'm not going to be the guy who comes in here and says, enough already, Jeff. Fact is, he could probably not get enough credit. He deserves it, and I'm proud to be not only his friend, but his partner and supporter. So just to say that, with all that said, finally, when you get underneath entertainment to another kind of story, another kind of entertainment about real stories with real meaning, involving issues of courage, independence, vitality, conviction, commitment, those are the stories that I think are really key. And I think those are the stories that need to get out more. And my commitment personally is to be here in support of you. And congratulations to all of you. We'll get you nailed out here independently in a minute, but to be in support of these stories getting out and to use whatever ability I have as an individual and also with the Sundance system to get those stories out to as broad an audience as possible, and maybe with a little luck succeed in creating that broader audience. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really thrilled to be here, and thank you all.
Thank you, Sir Ben and Bob, for joining us here and bringing your exceptional talents to the awards we will make tonight. Sir Ben and Bob will alternate announcing each. Are you putting your glasses? Oh, good. Okay, good. We have very small print here. Sir Ben and Bob will alternate announcing each award recipient and reading each citation. Then Jeff and I will present the award to each of our amazing 17 social entrepreneurs. Bob?
So let us begin with the first award going to Sakina Yakubi. Afghan Institute of Learning. Sakina Yakubi founded the Afghan Institute of Learning in 1995 to restore education and health programs in Afghanistan that were dramatically cut during 30 years of warfare. The organization's 18 women's learning centers provide services to more than 350,000 Afghan women and children each year. Its 16 educational learning centers have trained 10,000 teachers and have provided school supplies to thousands of young Afghan students, while its university has prepared 125 students for careers as community leaders. AIL plans to expand its teacher training programs and its partnership network to 100 new community-based organizations, ultimately training 3,300 new teachers and improving the health of 500,000 women and children.
Jim Fruchterman of Benetech. And while in college learning to make smart bombs, Jim Fruchterman hit upon the idea of using character recognition to make books available to people with reading disabilities. The experience inspired him to create Benetech, a company that utilizes technology to address social needs. With 25,000 books, its Bookshare.org is the world's largest library of electronic books for the disabled. Benetech's Martyrs project, used in 60 countries, helps collect and disseminate information about human rights abuses. In addition to deepening the impact of its current projects, Benetech plans to launch high-potential new projects, build its capacity, and advance the field of social entrepreneurship. Jim.
Mindy Luber, Ceres Incorporated. Mindy Luber was a founding board member of Ceres Incorporated in 1989 and became its president in 2003. The organization's goal is to advance institutional responsibility and environmental sustainability, persuading corporations to change their practices by galvanizing institutional investors. More than 24 companies took action on climate change as a result of Ceres' 2003 summit. Its 2005 convening produced a 10-point call for action that includes an investor commitment of $1 billion to clean energy technology. Ceres plans to persuade 25 more companies to make public commitments on climate change by 2008.
Jaru Bilamoria, Child Savings International. Jaru Bilamoria has devoted her life to helping children in India and around the world. Realizing that children living in poverty need an advocate, she founded Childline, which has fielded 3 million calls for assistance from street children in India's largest cities. She expanded the concept into an international organization called Child Helpline International, which supports helplines in 71 countries. She used the same model to found Child Savings International, a global network of organizations empowering children to plan and save for the future. The pilot program serves more than 70,000 children in India using school-based Aflatoon clubs that prepare children academically, manage income, and to help break the cycle of poverty. Jaru.
Taddy Bletcher, CETA City Campus. Taddy Bletcher was ready to immigrate from South Africa when he took a second look at his native country. I saw aching poverty, he said, and he made a life-changing decision to do something about it. In 1999, he and his colleagues opened CETA City Campus to provide disadvantaged youth a chance to earn a 4-year business administration degree. At a cost of just $9,500 per student, CETA has produced 1,800 graduates with potential lifetime earnings of $635,000 to $1.5 million, who teach and sponsor other students. CETA plans to open new campuses, increase enrollment, and create a franchise model called University in a Box, entirely built and managed by students.
Albina Ruiz, Ciudad Saludable. Albina Ruiz started worrying about health and environmental problems caused by garbage in Peru when she was an industrial engineering student. She came up with the idea of creating local enterprises to collect and process garbage, charge affordable fees, reduce waste in landfills, and generate income by recycling. After promoting her concept as a consultant for 15 years, she founded, must get this pronunciation right, Ciudad Saludable in 2001. The organization is generating employment and facilitating cleaner cities. It has trained authorities in 43 municipalities, works with 800 informal recyclers, and is helping the government to develop Peru's first national waste management plan. Ciudad Saludable plans to expand in 20 I got that right, 20 major cities. Adab.
J.B. Schramm, College Summit Incorporated. While applying to Yale, J.B. Schramm noticed that many of his friends from less advantaged backgrounds were not going on to college. He knew that students who are the first to attend college in their families are twice as likely to have children who also attend college, so he founded College Summit in 1993 to help students from low-income communities navigate the college application process. College Summit has achieved a college enrollment rate of 70% and a college retention rate of 80%. The cost per student has dropped, while the number of students served annually has risen from 925 in 2002 to 3,600 in 2004. The organization plans to serve 28,000 students over the next 3 years.
Gary Cohen, Healthcare Without Harm. While writing a community guidebook on toxic chemicals, Gary Cohen felt compassion for families living near waste sites who were struggling to protect their children. He co-founded Healthcare Without Harm in 1996 to inspire healthcare providers to adopt healthier products and practices. The organization has built a collaborative network of 435 groups in 52 countries. Healthcare Without Harm and its partners have closed more than 90% of medical waste incinerators in the United States and have virtually eliminated mercury medical products in US hospitals. Plans call for a coordinated global effort to educate medical providers, change harmful practices, and influence manufacturers to sell healthier products by demonstrating the efficacy and affordability of these alternatives. Gary.
Quatchelane Bakhtiri. Quatchelane Bakhtiri, she's the Institute for Development Studies and Practices. Quatchelane Bakhtiri grew up in a refugee camp outside of Karachi, where she helped new refugees arriving in Pakistan gain access to basic health care and education. Frustrated by a lack of efficacy in internationally sponsored development projects, she created Institute for Development Studies and Practices, IDSP, in 1998, to train and inspire students to become involved in Pakistan's social and economic development. The IDSP model, which cultivates trust in local communities, has been taken to 40 districts in the country and has graduated 1,200 students, 80% of whom help lead national and international community development organizations. IDSP plans to create a broader network of locally based learning institutions throughout Pakistan. Accepting the award on behalf of Quatchelane is Ali Naqvi of IDSP. But I think she's really here. I don't know what this is.
Karen Shea of International Bridges to Justice. A former public defender and ordained minister, Karen Shea moved to Cambodia in 1994 to train public defenders After witnessing many violations of the rights of citizens, she founded International Bridges to Justice to promote systemic global change in the administration of criminal justice. The organization has dramatically improved and even saved the lives of everyday citizens by training and supporting criminal defense lawyers and establishing a network of defender resource centers throughout China. Plans call for expansion in China, as well as Vietnam, Cambodia, and other countries where programs are expected to reach critical mass due to public awareness and the creation of professional associations of trained advocates and judges. Karen.
This person is here. Vera Cordero, Renacer Child Health Association. Working in a public hospital in Rio de Janeiro, Vera Cordero felt helpless and frustrated when children who were successfully treated for an infectious disease returned to the hospital and died from the same disease after becoming reinfected at home. Realizing that she needed to treat whole families, she raffled off her belongings and started Renacer Health Association in 1991 to work intensively with poor families. Renacer serves approximately 350 families per year, helping to lift them out of poverty. Its model has been replicated at 14 other independent centers. Plans call for helping an average of 1,000 new individuals every 18 months.
Andrea and Barry Coleman are Riders for Health. Andrea and Barry share a passion for motorcycles. Through the racing world, they became involved in fundraising for children in Africa. After noticing how frequently vehicles broke down and seeing women in childbirth being carried to the hospital in wheelbarrows, they remortgaged their house and founded Riders for Health in 1996. The organization trains local health workers to carry out daily vehicle maintenance and provides technicians who visit monthly to service vehicles, thus making health care available even in remote areas of Africa. In areas served by reliable vehicles, vaccination rates have risen, death rates have dropped, and the efficacy of health workers has increased 300%. And they're both here, Andrea and Barry Coleman.
John Wood, Room to Read. On a trek to Nepal, John Wood visited a school whose crumbling library was almost devoid of books. Remembering how much his hometown library has affected his life, he returned a short time later with more than 3,000 books. He founded Room to Read in 2000 to provide educational resources to children who might otherwise face lifelong illiteracy. The organization has helped more than 875,000 children by constructing 200 schools, establishing more than 2,500 libraries, providing 1 million new children's books, creating 85 computer and language labs, and funding 1,757 girls' scholarships in India, Nepal, and Southeast Asia. Room to Read plans to continue partnering with communities to serve 1.9 million more children by 2008.
Heidi Kuhn, Roots of Peace. A cancer diagnosis and successful treatment prompted Heidi Kuhn to want to give back to the less fortunate and to live close to and nurture the land. Inspired by the international campaign to ban landmines, she founded Roots for Peace in 1997 at her family's home in California wine country. The organization takes practical steps towards sustainable development and enduring peace by converting minefields into vineyards, agricultural fields, and safe migration corridors for wildlife. Roots of Peace has helped renew production in Croatia's wine-growing regions. In Afghanistan, it has removed 100,000 landmines and proved farmers could earn more growing grapes than poppies. The model is being replicated in Angola and in Cambodia. Heidi.
John Marks, Search for Common Ground. John Marks founded Search for Common Ground at the height of the Cold War to build bridges between East and West. The organization has provided productive methods and tools for governments, community organizations, and journalists to sow the seeds for inter-ethnic harmony. It has produced media programs designed to create understanding among ethnic communities, and it has worked with medical institutions to establish a system to monitor infectious diseases across the Middle East. Search for Common Ground has established multi-pronged conflict prevention programs in Angola, Burundi, Congo, Ivory Coast, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The organization intends to bring its media program to global scale and achieve measurable changes in public attitudes towards conflicts.
Blaise Jujasato, Village Reach. Born in Cameroon, Blaise Jujasato was a successful U.S. businessman when a devastating flood in Mozambique prompted his return to Africa. While helping with relief efforts, he saw how difficult it was to get medicines across that last mile to those in need. He founded Village Reach to solve infrastructure gaps in remote areas, including locating quality suppliers and providing reliable transport and training in vaccine management and safe waste disposal. Village Reach has equipped and trained staff in 88 clinics that serve 1.5 million people in Mozambique. It plans to reach an additional 3.5 million people and replicate its model in other countries over the next 3 years. Please.
I think you'll agree that the work of these incredible individuals gives us all a reason for hope, to see Judith Kumiri's long view and to see it clearly. I want to thank each of them for arranging to join us in Oxford this week, and I want to acknowledge their colleagues and families at home for carrying on the vital work they do every week of the year. I also want to thank Robert Redford and Sir Ben Kingsley for lending panache and drama to our celebration and for their genuine regard for the work of social entrepreneurs. Bob and Sir Ben will join us during the reception after a short pause to complete some official photos. I also want to thank and acknowledge all those of you who are professionals, social entrepreneurs, volunteers, and volunteer directors, people who serve organizations like those we have just celebrated and so many others. And I want particularly to thank directors of the Skoll Foundation, nearly all of whom traveled to be here with us. Would Jim DiMartini, Deborah Dunn, Kirk Hansen, Peter Hero, and Roger Martin please stand so that we can let you know how much we appreciate your dedication. Special thanks to the wonderful staff of the Skoll Center and Said School, Rowena Young, Alex Nichols, Liz Nelson, and Ollie Scheel. And my dear Skoll Foundation colleagues and partners, Sandy, Laura, Andy, Ruth, Christy, Phil, Heather, Julie, and Victor, for all they have done to make tonight's occasion a celebration of individuals and of community. And a bouquet of thank yous to Jeff for helping us all to write this story of how a better world came first to be imagined and then to be. And now it's time to tackle the reception and melt some ice together. Please join me and the remarkable men and women we honor tonight in the lobby outside. Good night, and may the forces of creative destruction go with you.